Where are we going now?
We are going to military demarcation line.
Kim Jong-il instructed that the soldiers must remain alert and be prepared for combat as long as the U.S. imperialists exist on this planet.
Your political indoctrination continues when the North Koreans take you to their side of the DMZ. And going to the DMZ from the north is a completely different animal than going to the DMZ from the south. From the south, you have to go through checkpoint, 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 checkpoint. On the North Korean side, you go from Pyongyang, it's about a 2.5-hour drive. But when you go there, actually, it's a lot more laid back. Although you do notice on the drive in, there's a hell of a lot more troops on the North Korean side. And everywhere, there's these massive monuments. And you're like, what are those monuments? And they say, oh, they're filled with dynamite. And if there's ever an invasion, they blow up and they fall down and they're tank barriers.
That's the American building there with all cameras on it.
And unlike the South Korean side, you can shoot what you want, you can point at people, you can give them the finger, you can do whatever you want, you can drink beer. Basically, it's a big fuck you to the South, it's a big fuck you to the Americans.
We're in Panmunjom, the demilitarized zone, where the armistice was signed between the DPRK and the UN.
The US had a great loss, so they proposed to us to have the armistice talks in June 1951.
All they want to do is tell you about how bad the Americans are. This is where we defeated the American, imperialist aggressors. This is where North Korea shut down the biggest military power in the world. And that's what everything's designed to do.
We're on night vision because there's no electricity in Panmunjom. We got in trouble for shooting. They said we might get charged for a criminal offense, so I'm trying to do this as quietly as possible. So we have to go now because the guards are mad.
All you hear in the DMZ is talk of reunification.
So now we are trying to reunify the country as soon as possible.
Is this a political thing? Like, are you trying to reunify? They won't mention just reunify.
You think one day they will be unified?
Of course, yes, why not? The master of the Korean Revolution are the masters of the Korean people. And we have the leader, we have the army, we have the party.
At that point you go, these guys are serious, serious dudes. And then on the way back, you stop off and you have a meal and they're like, oh, you're hungry? Hey, let's just stop at any old restaurant. And they're pretending like, this is like any restaurant. We just showed up. Hey, McDonald's on the side of the road. But let's say there's 7 of you. You get to the restaurant, there's 7 places laid out and the whole other restaurant's empty. It's been choreographed. They've been waiting for you for 2 days, all set up, the whole restaurant waiting to go.
We're in Kaesong, in a nice restaurant. We just had a lovely meal.
You have lunch, which is like 50 plates of little shit. Again, you can't eat any of it, but it's like, just look how much food we have. We're so great.
Kinda quiet.
So, your first 2 days there, you're like, crazy food, politics. Crazy food, politics. So you start to get a bit freaked out at this point.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And then on the way back, thinking this is the 4th largest army in the world all along this border, and they've threatened America with nukes and Japan with nukes. I'm like, how can they have nukes? They don't have electricity. It's like turn of the century industrial Britain. How do they have nukes?
The Korean people have leader Kim Jong-il in high esteem, who had strengthened and developed the Workers' Party of Korea as the party of President Kim Il-sung forever. This is the fortune and glory of Korea. On the 60th birthday of the Workers' Party of Korea, working people of all walks of life throughout the country unfolded a sea of dancing, overwhelmed with emotions and joy.
So after driving back from the DMZ and our choreographed lunch, you realize that everything is going to be choreographed. Like, hey, what do you want to do tonight? You want to go out for a few beers? And you're like, hey, this isn't so bad. Sure, let's go out for a few beers. And you go out to the sort of state-sanctioned karaoke place, which is only really for foreigners and really high-ranking party officials. Now the guards have been waiting. They've studied their whole lives, English, and they've studied political dialectics so that they're the best and the brightest. And this is like the top position, but they have to wait all year for about 10 days for any tourists to come. So there's kind of this weird, like they're holding back their excitement because they get to eat and they get to drink and smoke cigarettes and all these great things. And you can see them vibrating. They're so excited. Yeah, have some cigarettes. And they're like, oh God. And drinking, but they're trying not to show it.
Check 1, 2, 2. This is for you. In the day of the mountain, there will be time left for right. So good night, and God guard you forever. And right to me, won't you? Goodbye. Just like time.
Irish versus are around.
Where are we going tomorrow?
To the present the museum.
The museum?
Museum, yeah.
The International Exhibition Hall.
Friendship.
International Friendship Exhibition Hall.
Yeah.
We're going to buy some ties.
More of the cigarette is better for me.
Bad for you? It's bad for everybody.
Do you have a cigar? Do you have a lighter?
What does it mean? Say hello?
I'm glad to meet you.
I'm glad to meet you. That's why you shake hands.
That's why this is the first song that I told you that I speak.
But that's why when you sing it, you always shake hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow we have a big day.
Good night. Why good night? This evening, this morning we are going to meet again.
Okay.
This morning.
I see you this morning.
See you.
So we went out on a night on the town in Pyongyang with our guards, which is good because the guards weren't enjoying us as human beings. Today they threatened Jamie, who's filming this, with, what was it, gross and sensitive crimes to the Republic or something? Right.
Criminal offenses, which would have severe repercussions.
All we had to do was buy like 6 bottles of blueberry wine and everybody was fine, except for Mr. Lee. He wanted to fight with us after we disrespected Kum Sum Kumida, the song that says, pleased to meet you. So, we're drinking shochu, and we're going to bed now. He got mad at me, Mr. Lee got mad at me when he goes, it was the first song I taught you. Okay, I don't remember the first song you taught me, Mr. Lee. Okay, honey bun, good night.
Officers and men of the Korean People's Army and people are visiting the statue of President Kim Il-sung with loyal pledge to build surely a strong, prosperous and powerful socialist nation in Korea true to his behest.
So once they get through with the indoctrination, like the Pueblo and DMZ, of how bad the Americans are, then begins how great we are. And that starts with Kim Il-sung, the eternal president. And everybody has to go and pay their respects to the great statue of Kim Il-sung, who, although he's been dead since 1994, is still the president of North Korea.
At the statue of Kim Il-sung. We have to do this as a token of respect.
And then they took us 2 hours south of Pyongyang to the International Friendship Exhibition, which is this 2,000-room sort of fortress cut into a mountain, deep into a mountain, like 20 stories down. And what it is it's all these presents that were given or sent to Kim Il-sung by heads of state or foreign dignitaries or notaries. They're so paranoid about anyone finding out about these treasures that they won't let you know where this is, they won't tell you anything, and of course you can't shoot there. And in fact, they got really mad even when we were shooting outside. He took my camera and he said, "How much memory does your camera have?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, 48 megs or something." And he opened it up and he took it out, and I had a 5 gig card because I was shooting actual movies with it on the slide. And he goes, "You're a liar. You lied to me. You know very well that's not true. This is 5 gigs. And even if I had taken pictures down there, which I didn't, they just take out your memory card and say, "Thank you very much."
So we're hiding from our guards right now, who don't want us to film anything. We have to keep quiet. We're allowed to be quiet up here. They're relaxing and having tea right now, so we get a few seconds. We're at the International Friendship Museum, or otherwise known as the International Insanity Museum, where all the presents from all around the world came. And it's like alligators holding trays and all kinds of dead animals and ivory, like huge ivory and all this gold stuff. They have all this crazy business.
And there's so many attractions there, so many treasures, that if you were to stop and look at each one, it would take a year and a half to get through. Everybody goes on this pilgrimage at one time in their lives, and they wear their best clothes. The women get dressed up in native costume, the men wear their uniforms. And what a benevolent God, because he's sharing all these amazing treasures like he would share them with his children. So they think that every leader in the world thinks that Kim Il-sung is the best. Not that we're mad at them or North Korea is on its own. They think Kim Il-sung is the best. They don't understand that the world is mad at North Korea.
Gifts came to him from political parties and delegations of various countries, international organizations, cultural and friendship organizations, figures of various strata, and those who have connections with the anti-Japanese revolutionary struggle. All the gifts are permeated with boundless reverence and praises for Kim Jong-il, who had safeguarded the socialist career and made imperishable contributions to peace and security of mankind and the cause of making the world independent.
The metro in Pyongyang was built in a magnificent way, and theaters were built as a representative of the times. Kim Jong-il's guidance reached construction of Pyongyang Metro, an underground palatial structure.
Going to the subway for us was a really big deal because we never got to interact with North Koreans, and we were like, wow, we get to see real live North Koreans.
We're going down into the metro. We're going down deep. This is amazing because it's a working subway, bomb shelter, and beautiful thing.
They either try to ignore you or they're incredibly fascinated by you. And a lot of them look at you and they do not like you because they've been told you're the devil since they were 2 years old.
Check out the lights up there.
Subways are a big thing in communist countries. I mean, Moscow is famous for its lavish stops on its public transportation system, as is Pyongyang. You know, look at how great our public transport system is.
Reminds me of taking the L train.
So you get to go from one stop to another stop, both of which are incredibly lavish and over the top.
Fireworks. Oh.
The rest aren't as lavish, and apparently the rest are just tiny little, 5 feet tall things that you come out of that are really functional, but they have two sort of monumental ones that you're allowed to see. You're not allowed to see the other ones. And as you come out, you realize, this is 1950s Russia. This is Soviet Russia. This is Maoist China. I've come back in a time warp.
Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il worked shoulder to shoulder so as to build on this land a country good to live in. Kim Il-sung once said that Kim Jong-il's ideas, leadership and traits originated from his love for the people.